let's start with the first one. We talked about the ratings already. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the ratings. Ratings are what they are. But shout out to NXT. We know they loaded that show up with legends, with main roster talent, and it worked. They received, like I said, I think it was 921,000 viewers for NXT. AEW on a separate night did 609,000 viewers. NXT won the demo and the views. Is there anything you guys want to talk about with the ratings before we kind of just even put that to the side and get into our thoughts on both shows and what we watched and all that kind of stuff?
Murder, She Wrote. Murder, She Wrote. I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought about it right before I saw the ratings. I'm like, you know what? Why can't NXT hit that mill? And I thought to myself, would it be disappointing that they didn't? Considering everybody they brought to the show, the Undertaker bell, right? Like, right, man, would it be kind of a loss if they didn't hit a mill? But it got close, and they haven't gotten this close in a while, so definitely a win. But yeah, we knew that slaughter was coming.
Nothing else to add to that. It was not a surprise. I actually took the approach that I'm surprised they still drew in 600,000 on a night that they usually are not on. And I know Matt and you and I talked for a hot second about the difference between it, that NXT still blew them out the water. But still, for me, I was surprised. That means they got 2/3 of their normal, a little bit more than 2/3 of their normal viewership on a different day. And I think that really, really does matter. But there's really no point in belaboring this topic. I think everyone knew that this would happen, right? As far as ratings?
No, I think some of your AEW fans did not see that. And if I think I said it a week ago, if it was on Wednesday, you can probably flip those numbers around, and AEW will win because it's their normal time slot. You're always going to lose something when you go on a different day. But the way they loaded that show up, I think we knew it. NXT, WWE. And it was funny too, because I put up a poll on X a couple hours before the show started. I just said, what show are you watching? And I'll be damned if these results didn't almost mirror the ratings. So I gave 4 options. I said NXT only, AEW only, NXT first, and then AEW on DVR, or AEW first, then NXT on DVR. The number one answer by far was NXT only at 45%.
Ooh.
Second answer was NXT first, then AEW on DVR at 25%. So by that math, 70% of people that took this poll was watching NXT somehow, some way Tuesday night. So that leaves you with only 30%. The next answer was AEW only was at 18%, and then AEW first, then NXT on DVR was 12%. If you break that down and look at the ratings, that's almost a carbon copy of those results. So NXT, either through our Twitter follower base, is the new hotness right now. This would have not happened a year ago. Damn sure wouldn't happen 2 years ago. E, let me ask you, why did you decide to watch NXT first?
Because I was seeing something different on NXT. Right? It was something different. They were putting on a spectacle. You had John Cena for the first time ever going down to NXT. I didn't even hear the sneak peek for Undertaker. That was a total surprise for me. I missed that. Paul Heyman's going down there. Cody Rhodes is making an announcement. And I'm invested in a lot of the characters and storylines, and I want to see how they're going to interact with that main roster talent. I was interested because I was interested in the characters, and I was interested in the surprise guests. I knew on AEW I was going to get more of the same, which is, really great matches. I knew that, but I wasn't going to get anything out of the ordinary, anything different that would make me say, hey, you know what? Let me watch this instead of seeing something different and new and actually hotter. I think there was a comment. I don't know if it's true or not, but your boy Uncle Dave and Rhodesia, you know how much Matt loves Dave Meltzer. Yeah, that's his road dog. He loves him. And he said that and it's funny because our fans, we always say someone's a shill or someone's on the payroll, and Dave's supposed to be on the AEW payroll, and he came out and said that AEW's cold, and that Edge wasn't CM Punk for them, and I think there's some truth to that. Like, I just don't think that I don't want to say it's cold right now,
Right?
but it's definitely not a hot product like WWE, and I think that NXT itself, that's why I've been talking to you guys about it for weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of synergy with that show. They're putting on some really great TV right now.
They are. And I mean, AEW their ticket sales are ice cold. And I think part of that is they need to change their ticket strategy. They do. In terms of pricing, in terms of how they promote. But there's a couple of things that I think they can do differently for their TV product too. And we will absolutely get to that in this discussion, just between the similarities or the complete contrast of NXT / WWE TV and AEW television. It is an alternative. So we don't want it to be a carbon copy. Nobody can outdo WWE doing WWE. Just like nobody can outdo NJPW more than NJPW. But it's interesting with AEW, like, what is their thing outside of just great wrestling? And that's massive. That's huge, because if you're going to tune in for a wrestling product and you get great wrestling, that may be all you need or want. But I think numbers are showing a little bit differently, particularly the ticket sales. It was another night last night that they didn't hit 4,000. And I think they were in that same building previously, and they had higher attendance than Adam Copeland's first match. Like, that tells you a little something is off right now with just the excitement level. And we'll get to something else too that I noticed. You put it in the group text yesterday just saying, hey, would you rather have a small arena or a small building within wrestling with a small lively crowd, or a big building with a smaller lively crowd? And that is what we saw on both shows yesterday, that exact situation. And boy, was there a stark contrast. Did it not feel like 3 years ago, but in reverse? Every single thing that happened, everybody that came out, blow the roof off the joint. I'm seeing more and more folks like not even cheering on their phones, texting, and yeah, they bought a ticket to be there, but it's like, damn, where is the investment at? It really, and that goes back to being hot. WWE's crowds have been hot for months, but it's interesting when you watch and you see, like, damn, it just flipped. Where now WWE's crowd is hot and they're engaged, and AEW, they're there, but they're not there the way they used to. So, Rhodesia, of course.
No. Hey, Rhodesia, right before you go, I know your will is like, we got to get you guys, you're not watching this on YouTube. You got to watch this on YouTube so you can see like the wheels turning in Rhodesia, so she can see her thinking about all the things that she's hearing and putting it together in her head. You got to watch it. But let me ask you a question as you go into your topics and statements. Do you think AEW has lost a big part of their audience, or maybe a part of the audience?
Is that directed to me or Matt?
Rhodesia.
No, I don't think so. I think that the majority of AEW fans are still AEW fans. The better question in my mind will probably be how many AEW fans were also like your NXT fans that kind of, now that we have something that was on the main stage, I can get behind. So how many of those people were still WWE fans in essence? And now we are here where we have H doing something really well, what we really loved at NXT back in the Black and Gold days, kind of happening again on main event too as well, on Raw and SmackDown. So as far as the questions that you asked me, and Eshaun was saying my brains was turning or my wheels was turning, because I was a little confused on what you said about how small crowd or loud crowd, big building, small crowd, small building. I was a little confused there, but I get it now. For NXT and AEW, I knew I was going to watch NXT first. So I think for me, again, I guess this is the elephant in the room. Which show did we like better? I don't know if I should say that now or later, but I knew I was going to watch NXT first. Now, I will say also watching NXT first, I felt bad not watching Dynamite first. I think in WWE, by no stretch of imagination, they know how to build excitement for a show. We got to see it on Raw and SmackDown for weeks about them, or for a couple of weeks of them coming down to NXT. They know how to do that. They do that. They're the machine. They do that better than anybody. So for me, I think all the excitement was over there on NXT.
Is that
what else
why
did
is that why you wanted to watch NXT first, or was there another reason why?
Well, the more practical reason is that because we were watching TV on the same television and you were watching NXT first and we were in the same room together. And then plus us in our group chat, we're all watching NXT. I'd have felt a little bit weird watching AEW first in a whole different room that I really don't know how to operate the television, and
That's
then
crazy.
try to go back and forth. So, but again, they still built excitement. My favorite wrestler of all times, Undertaker, was going to be on there. So I couldn't also turn my back on seeing Undertaker, however I would get him. So WWE, they know how to build excitement. They do. That has been our beef under Vince right before the H days, because you have all these great people, all this great talent that we've seen once before. People get behind and rally behind, and then when you bring them up to main roster, they kind of just disintegrate. So that is purely the reason why. And then again, it could be something with the colors. It could be something with the excitement there. But I don't want to shoot the shot first and talk about, or jump ahead and say, why I like AEW a lot too. Dynamite last night. But do we want to go there now? I don't know. I don't want to mess up your flow of the show.
Well, I had a couple other questions for you guys, but you take it. I said take it wherever you want to take it. Nope, take it wherever you want to take it.
I will say that I believe that from when I talked about on our Sunday show came to fruition. NXT was the better show in the sense of excitement, the pomp and circumstances, the feeling good. But the matches, I was more invested in AEW Dynamite. I felt like on oh my God, all these acronyms, WWE, I felt like it didn't really advance storylines. Now, I would say that we did get an announcement of the men's tournament. We got an announcement of the Dusty Rhodes Classic coming back, and I think we had a couple of matches for next week. But it was kind of like, it felt like a gimmick match. It was like a crown jewel type PLE for me. So nothing really happened. There was really no true investment to me. And quite frankly, I thought the Cody announcements felt really flat. Like very flat. I don't know if I'm the only one who felt that way. They were very underwhelming for me for the announcements that Cody made. On Dynamite, hell, I think I saw probably one of my favorite matches between Jay White and Hangman Page.
They smoked it.
On just regular Dynamite. So, like I said, I thought match by match that Dynamite would be better. And NXT would just be an overall better show, which they are. They're polished. Their production is incredible. Second to none.
I always find it interesting when people are comparing NXT and the AEW brand, because NXT is a developmental brand. So you got Lola Vice and Danny, what's her name?
Palmer.
Who
killed? They killed it.
You got them wrestling against like season tenure veterans. I mean, it's just very, very interesting that we compare the matches the same way. Not just talking about you particularly, Rhodesia, but just in the wrestle fandom, right? This is their developmental show.
But I don't think we probably do. I think we are now, because the playing field has been much more level. Becky's been down there for weeks. Before that, I mean, we know they've been take a couple of main roster talent on NXT and have them go down for a little bit. But in this week's show in particular, they loaded that show up. Hell, they brought in LA Knight to be a guest referee. Mm-hmm. Anybody that was hot outside of Jey Uso, I mean, we can name a few.
They even showed Jey.
They basically handpicked anyone who they know can really draw ratings. Okay, we got to get you on this show somehow, some way.
But no, you look at not just the talent, like Cody being there, LA Knight being there. I'm talking about, all right, it's Asuka versus Roxanne, like, right? Jay White versus Hangman. You know what I mean? Those are two seasoned, like Roxanne's still up and comer,
right?
Like, right? You got the main roster talent having matches with quote unquote development talent, right? It's not, LA Knight versus Cody. It's not, John Cena versus, what's another big name? Whoever. It's them working somebody that's a developmental talent. and then that developmental talent rising to the occasion and making it a good match. Right, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this is AEW's best of the best. This is NXT. This ain't WWE's best of the best at going against each other for 2 hours. No, this is like their main roster's talent giving a rub to younger wrestlers, and we're seeing them flourish on television. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this is AEW through their best of the best in these matches. They damn near had another pay-per-view like in 2 hours on Tuesday night.
That's what I'm saying. I always went into AEW knowing that they were going to have a better match for match, and that NXT was going to be more of a polished production, because that's all it really was.
And we're getting into like story. I think that because I remember we were talking in the chat, like there's a lot of storyline advancement if you actually watch the show to actually know what's going on, right? The Chase U skit, that wasn't just a skit. Like that was a storyline advancement. The Dusty Classic, I mean, like, I loved Dusty Classic back in the day. I loved it back before when Dusty had it. Like, I loved it. Like, that's always been a big thing. So there's a lot of little things that on that show they kind of.
But this is what I asked. This is what I asked Matt last night, and I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or if he just didn't answer me. But haven't we had the Dusty Classics multiple times?
Not since Cody's been there in WWE.
Yeah, and,
Cody's been there for a year plus.
And Vince got rid of that for a little while, though.
So for him to go down to NXT for the first time ever and announce a thing that was named after his dad, that was a really cool moment.
That they brought it back. And the Dusty Classics were cool. Yep. Actually, the last one I didn't necessarily like. This is when they, that was
2.0. Ain't nobody. It wasn't nothing on them shows.
Well, what's 2.0? I think it was before that, though, wasn't it? There was one before 2.0.
I don't think so, man. Like, I just had to wash NXT from my brain. I'm just happy to be back. I was trying to find my NXT shirt. I was gonna wear that. But
I have an NXT shirt. I have a few of them. The takeover shirts.
I found some takeover shirts, the shows that we went to, but I was just trying to find just the regular black and gold NXT. So who won the night for you then? Or because Rhodesia kind of gave her answer there, right? It was kind of like a 50-50 type answer, but I understand completely what she means by that. What about you?
It was it's NXT. I think it's another brand that is flourishing, right? I think that NXT is now, we have so much great wrestling to watch right now. I don't think it's a show that you can say, I can skip that show this week. I think it's become a show that's you gotta pay attention to. Like maybe if you're not watching on Tuesday, you gotta watch it on Thursday or watch it on. So you gotta catch it. Because I think that show has become a much-watched television. Like the quality of the show and the presentation. And that's why I asked you that question, Matt, about the audience. Because I know you don't like them small studio crowds, but like they brought it last night. Like the energy was really, really, really great. And one of the things we noticed with Collision and some of the Dynamite shows is that because of the attendance,
right?
Like it doesn't always come across
different.
well.
It feels different,
on television. So, like, I think in that instance last night, that's when that small, engaged audience really, really worked well. But just to go back to it, I think NXT won just to make it another show. Because Dynamite is a good show. Like, if you will love wrestling, you're in good matches. I mean, they had a loaded card. It was awesome. But NXT's been that one that's, 2.0, and Vince got rid of all Triple H's guys. It brought up all this development talent. People who have never been on TV. He brought Brian Breaker on the national television, and the dude, I think, he only been in the business for like 2 months or something like that. Like, right? So we've gone through a lot of growing pains with NXT. So it's arrived, and honestly, I think the company's investment in that brand being successful with Triple H and H, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, we know, that there's some thought that they're really putting this push behind NXT just to get higher rights deals for the contract that comes up next year. I don't give a damn why. It's turning out to be fantastic television. And 1.5 million people watched wrestling last night.
Let's get a round of applause for that.
Let's give it up for that. When you think about whatever you're into, whatever you are into, you got on Tuesday night. For me, it reminded me for sure of the Monday Night Wars. I didn't do any flipping though. Of course I watched NXT first and I immediately watched AEW after. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll need like a buffer, because there's some times where I have watched 2 separate shows on the same night. hell, we just did it. I just did it Saturday with Collision and
Payback
Fastlane.
2.
Fastlane, baby.
Payback 2.
We watched Fastlane, and I gave myself like a 45-minute buffer, I think it was, or like an hour. It was like a cleanser for me, a palate cleanser. I was like, okay, now let me watch Collision. Because if I was to watch it immediately after, you can only watch so much wrestling and then see it for the excitement and the engagement that you need to see it for, especially when you're talking about two totally different brands. You lose something on that second show. So I didn't need to do that last night because NXT is only 2 hours. It flew by. It felt like.
Yeah, it did fly by.
Yeah, I was able to really enjoy AEW right after that. I think that, I mean, for me, Rhodesia, you kind of took my answer, so I'm not going to go over it again. For those 2 hours, NXT had a hell of an exciting show. I probably enjoyed, I have a problem saying that because I don't know, but I would say I probably enjoyed NXT more in those 2 hours because of the newness factor of seeing Cena down there, seeing Heyman down there, seeing those interactions. That's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy to see. Just like to see Heyman and Rock's daughter. Like, are you kidding me? Like, how cool was that? It was like a 10-second shoot, but it was like, damn, that's great. That's awesome.
Like he's trying to recruit her to the bloodline.
That's the way to maximize your time.
Yep. Or when they were shaking Asuka's hand. Like, to me, because I'm a huge Asuka fan, that had me pop.
And I loved it because it was just set up for Tiffany to be like, get out of here. Are you serious? Like, so I really enjoy that. But I think to Rhodesia's point, if you look at the legends that they brought in, there's nothing about them next week. Cody's gone. He's not coming back. Cena's gone. He's not coming back. Taker's gone. He's not coming back. Heyman's gone. He's not coming back. Asuka's gone. She's not coming back. So yes, E, to your point, they advanced Chase U. They advanced Trick and Mello in a really cool way. Little small advancement, but talking to Cena, that's their advancement. So yeah, they moved things along for NXT, but for the people they brought in for that particular show, it was just in a capsule. Like, they're not going to be on there next week or in 2 weeks from now. Where AEW, I thought they really maximized their day because outside the great matches, Swerve and Bryan killed. To your point, Rhodesia, Jay White and Hangman killed. You had 2 title changes, both to help further the company and the storylines. We knew Phoenix wasn't supposed to win the title in the first place. So, all right, put it back on Orange Cassidy. And how do you guys take Orange Cassidy's demeanor after he won the belt?
Well, I actually didn't realize what I saw. Like, I heard that he won, and I'm like, and it took a minute for me to like register. Like, oh shoot, well, okay. So what was the point of him dropping it? So I don't even know how to answer your question because I was just so in the moment of like, what just happened here?
I actually fell asleep right before that match.
Damn it.
And I watched the show. I forgot about that match. So I woke up at a certain point, and that had already passed. So I assumed what I woke up watching was where I needed to finish. So I never I went back to that one.
So go back and watch it. He wins. He doesn't crack a smile. He has like this kind of like this obsessed look of the belt. So they hand him the belt, and he's just looking at it. He walks out the ring. Best friends are out there to congratulate him. Hook's out there, and he kind of like dapped him up a little bit, and that was it. He didn't. It was. I was like, damn, is he going heel or is he sad that he won it? Because he's like, damn, I got to go through what I went through. It's kind of hard to tell.
Okay, got it.
But there's something there. Like, there is significantly something there. So you had that. You had
the Oscar nominated cinema presentation of Toni Storm Silent.
She's doing the best work, arguably, of anybody in wrestling right now.
Wait a minute though. Like, the only thing, did they replay that? Because
there were 2
wasn't
acts.
it a commercial?
It was but it was a silent presentation.
It was a silent movie.
Okay. So how awesome was that?
It was done on purpose during the commercial because there was no volume to it.
So I was so mad.
Yeah, because at first I'm like, no, y'all just didn't put a commercial while she's doing this. She did say it's a silent. Yeah, like that was really, really cool.
I was looking for Tony Khan's phone number.
Well, hey,
I knew I had it somewhere.
Just hit him on Twitter, man. He's very active.
He'll respond. He'll respond.
He was on one. He's been on one. Shout out to Tony. Anybody can get it.
And my favorite storyline outside the bloodline about prior to 2 months ago. Come on, Adam Cole, he's holding off his surgery to still cut the grass of Roderick Strong. Like, come on.
My man is 2 weeks in and he still ain't had surgery yet. Damn.
Like, how classic is this right now?
But yeah, so no, I do think that AEW did more to get you to want to watch next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, man, it was everybody won last night. Everybody won. I do have a question for you guys, and I kind of said my piece, and I'll kind of just regurgitate it here when we were texting during NXT. What did you see? What stood out on both shows outside of one is in a smaller arena and not from a TV product perspective? Did anything come out and like seeing that you watched them immediately after each other? Was there anything that you saw and you were like, oh man, I didn't realize they heavily lean into that, or man, I didn't realize they do that on this show as much as they don't do it on this show?
That's a fantastic question. Watching Dynamite, I was a bit fatigued watching it last night because we had just finished watching NXT. So, that's just really, what I liked was, and this is about to sound like I'm talking in circles, the show started off on AEW with Christian being in the production truck. That was very like WWE-ish to me. I don't know if I'm the only one who felt that way, but evidently it works. It gets that excitement going. On NXT, it's back down to like, it's okay to be quirky. It's okay to be silly, kind of. I don't want to say caricature yourself, but it's okay to be kind of a little over the top with some of the performances, I should say, as far as the talking on the mic and stuff. I don't know. That's a very, very hard question. I think that's probably where I'll just land at. I'll just say that NXT allows you, which you've mentioned before, allows you to be a little bit more jovial, and it's okay. Where AEW, you really can't be jovial because there's a lot of these indie wrestlers who have something to prove with a chip on their shoulder.
For me, it was the production. I thought NXT did a great job, like on their developmental brand with their production. Like that yellow was just popping. Like the way they shot the crowd made it seem very intimate and lively. The video packages, the overall structure of the show, the flow of it. It was just amazing stuff. It seemed very professional, very polished, but like NXT reminded me a lot of like college football. Like, right? It seems like it's young people, but it's very polished behind the scenes and how they present that show, because it just flowed. And then when I switched off and looked and watched Dynamite, it's almost like the resolution dropped on my TV to me.
I see what you mean by that.
The colors seem a little flatter. The way it's shot, it's like that was the biggest thing that I noticed for me. It was just the production. It was a big drop off in the production to me. And it kind of reminded me back in the day when I used to watch WWF and WCW. Like, right, because WCW, their production was but it didn't look as good as WWF did back in the day. And that's what I that's the vibe I kind of had. I felt like I was watching, back in the Monday Night Wars and this Monday Nitro and Raw.
But didn't y'all say that that's kind of like what Tony's MO has been? He's always wanted to be like the new improved WCW, just like down to how Collision looks.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the logos is really WCW. I mean, a lot of it's WCW inspired, which I'm good with. Being on Turner, slam dunk, easy to do that. I think what I saw completely last night, and I knew it already, but once again, when I was able to take it and really, because I'm dissecting these shows like a mofo, both of them, because I'm like, okay, I'm dialed in. They are going against each other, so both of them are putting their best foot forward every second of these shows, even though I'm not watching it head to head. And what I really noticed was NXT is a TV show, better or worse. AEW is a wrestling show, better or worse. Now, Rhodesia, to your point, they started with Christian in the truck, which I loved because they never do things like that. And that's the thread that is typically missing on Dynamite. If you are here for watching wrestling, which at the end of the day, we all are there to watch wrestling. That's why we were watching a wrestling show. They give us wrestling in spades. But if you're there for a little bit more than that, there's a lot of times that AEW leaves you wanting more. Now, on the opposite, we can say before the Triple H era, and even now a little bit on some of these shows, you get heavy promos and heavy story on WWE TV, and then you look up, you're like, damn, out of these 2 hours, there have been 8 minutes of wrestling. No, I don't know. We got to find a happy medium. And when you watch, like when we watch in NXT, they had so many segments to set up something else in the same show. That's a story thread. That's a story arc. That is what gets you invested in continuing to watch, or maybe picking up the phone or sending a text out to somebody like, hey, check out what's going on NXT right now. And you'll get that with AEW, but it's more of, hey, check out this match. I've heard more people talk about, and this is straight up, I've heard more people talk about Roddy Strong and Tony Storm in the last 3 weeks than I have any other match outside of Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay this entire year.
And why? Because it's entertainment.
Yes, and that is what you get into these characters for, is for the entertainment value. You know, so like seeing Cena come out a couple times, story arc through it. Cody, and now he's a GM, story arc. You see Cody, like that is a big piece of what is kind of missing from AEW. Now, do I want them to go through it and do that? No, I'm not saying that for sure, but I do want something to get me to point A to point B to get me to hour 2 of the show or to the main event of the show. Just don't hit me with the lower third graphic of these two people wrestling and you don't give me a video package of how we got here or anything like that. That's where, from a TV product perspective, I think they could really help themselves. But it was really apparent, just kind of going immediately from NXT to WWE. I want to share a couple of messages. So shout out to Chris Bush. He is a damn near lifelong WWE fan. Okay. He sent me a text today and just basically said, like, man, like NXT was pretty good. He typically doesn't watch NXT too much. We got talking a little bit. And then he said, I've watched Dynamite every Wednesday pretty faithfully for a year now, and I'm not digging it anymore.
Ooh.
To the point that I'm almost done.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I said, hey, give me 2 to 3 reasons why you're kind of feeling that way, and so we can bring it up on the show. Here's what he said, and I'll kind of like summarize some of it. He said, when I started watching, MJF was ending the feud with Wardlow, and Wardlow was hot. Then he was gone. Then CM Punk and MJF moved to telling a great story. The Acclaim were hot, then lost the titles. Feels like the crowd isn't into them anymore, which sucks. Then MJF disappeared for the money, then the brawl, then the Punk termination. All the greatness that could have been gets lost. And all that bullshit happening at the worst possible time. Then Cole and MJF had me for a second, but like Adam Cole had a dead plan behind him for a promo I couldn't even hear last week. I don't know, man. It's tough. He kind of talked about how much money it could have been in the Punk Elite story that they didn't do it. He said inconsistent appearances from people who I have no vested interest in. Will Ospreay, for example. I don't even really know a damn thing about the new women's champ. I don't know about NJPW, and I never will, so stop opening the forbidden door.
I counted like 10 things.
Too many titles. Then he said, let me stop. Laugh out loud. And then he gave some things he loves right now. He said Hill Christian, Prince and Swerve, Swerve and Hangman, Tony Storm's new gimmick, Renee, MJF. So, of course, there's some things that he likes. But I thought that was really, really interesting because here's somebody who didn't watch AEW in its infancy. He doesn't watch NJPW. He is somebody who AEW should be wanting to add to their fan base. And through those things, for him, they've alienated him. One more thing, and I'll get your guys' thoughts on both. Tyler, a guy over at Gimmick Infringement, shout out to you, Tyler. I know he likes AEW more than WWE typically. I asked him the same thing. Hey, give me a couple reasons why. He said, he gave me 2. He said, there's still an anything can happen vibe that I feel when I'm watching Dynamite. Then he said, I think they have the top promos in the game. You can't miss with MJF. You can't miss with Eddie Kingston. You can't miss with Samoa Joe, etc. I think they both have incredible points. just give me your guys' thoughts on a more AEW fan talking about why they appreciate AEW over WWE, and then a more WWE fan that tells you why they appreciate that more over AEW.
You want to go first, Eshaun? Because I'm ready to go. I got a whole bunch of things over here.
Go ahead.
I was writing everything down. So, to Chris Bush, 5 to 6 of your 10 items you dislike about it had something to do with either MJF or CM Punk. So here we are with that. Sheesh. Okay, so for Chris Bush side of things about Dynamite, everything he said is absolutely correct. I think it was just bad timing, and I think Punk had that black cloud over AEW for this last year and a half. I will ask him to just to hang on a little bit longer because of the reasons why you came into watching Dynamite. I think it's still there. Hey, we just found Wardlow last week, so maybe something's gonna change there.
Yeah, no more Where's Wardlow, baby. We got him. He came out too again this week with MJF on his wrist. Just saying.
He sure did. He sure did. So this might actually be kind of your, what you put it, the thing in the sand. Okay, now you can start all over again, Chris Bush. So, and come back over to being a Dynamite fan. Tyler, anything can happen vibe. That is 100% true for better or for worse. How we talked about in NXT is a TV show for better or for worse. Titles can drop at any moment on AEW, and you're like, whoa, what just happened there? And again, the top promos. Well, yeah, because those people have that luxury of being able to go out there and speak however they want to speak. They are not scripted. So those people that he mentioned, I think, is Eddie, Samoa Joe. Some of these guys have been in the business for such a long time. They know what works and what doesn't work and how to feed into the crowd. I like Dynamite more than NXT. And to E's point about why are we comparing it, I guess naturally I'm comparing it because this is what today's show is all about. But I really do like Dynamite. I think there's just so much raw talent, so much raw, beautiful goodness. It just has to be polished and packaged better for me. But I love Dynamite.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a very neutral person when I come to different takes. So it doesn't always come off that way, but I understand both points. I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think the things that Tyler mentions about AEW are very true. When you watch, and this is where you always gotta commend these guys for putting on TV, new TV shows every week with no off season, right? Because I'm a big fan of I can't think of the name, the Mandalorian, right? We get 12 episodes or whatever it is, and then we gotta wait for the next season if it's going to get another season, right? You're like in this anticipation to like that next season, but those writers, those actors, they get time to kind of refresh, right? To come up with something new, creative, take those stories. Tony Khan, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, these guys are coming up with new TV every single week with no audiences. You got to commend those things with those guys. I say this, when you watch Raw, when you watch SmackDown, there are a lot of episodes that are kind of just there. Like they're there just to kind of, slowly push stories along to get to a POE or whatever it is. So you don't always get that surprise element when you watch SmackDown and Raw.
Right.
Because sometimes you're just going to get it's a show that's kind of there to kind of get you to another show. Whereas on AEW, it could be a surprise from anywhere, right? It could be a surprise from Mexico. It can be a Forbidden Door. It can be anybody that can pop up on the TV and they're going to have a match, right? RVD pops up out of nowhere and he's in the best shape of, I don't say of his life, but the best shape of his recent, right? Because I've seen a lot of RVD in the past, like 5 or 6 years. And he started looking like an older RVD at some point. He came back in that Michigan show looking like he was like a 40-something-year-old man, looking pretty good, right? But I think there's something to that. I think for a lot of the reasons why people love AEW, I think it alienates others, right? Because when we talk about the matches, there's a lot that goes on in those matches. They're sometimes chaotic to where if you're a wrestling fan, you get it. Because you got to kind of be in on it a little bit to be a wrestling fan. But I think in AEW, they abuse that suspension of the belief you got to have with wrestling more than you should. And I think that alienates a lot of the viewers to where you're just constantly just giving them high octane matches where they're not selling things or where everything's moving so quickly. It's kind of hard for you to digest and really, as you said, you get numb to it. So if you're getting banger after banger after banger after banger with no breather, at a certain point, you get kind of like numb by the good wrestling, right? Now you're just starting to stare at it. Your eyes are just glazing over because you're just seeing so much of it, right? To whereas with NXT, WWE, SmackDown, they're layering it for you. They're slowing it down. They're kind of building you up to a certain thing, and then they kind of bring you down. It's more of an emotional roller coaster. And to be quite honest, that's why I watch wrestling. Like I can't. To be honest with you, when I was a kid, when I was watching this stuff at 5 or 6 years old, I could care less about work rate. I can care less who was throwing the a pina colada, match. I'm like a Hurricanrana.
Well, I was trying to think about work rate. Ultimate Warrior is one of my favorite wrestlers.
Man, we didn't care about none of that. We cared about the storylines. We cared about the characters. We cared about the drama. That's what brought us into it. So in the heart of most wrestling fans, that's what you really love and you want about wrestling. It's all about that. So when AEW makes it so much about the moves and the matches, I think it's just really, that's why I asked Rhodesia earlier. I'm like, hey, do you think they're losing fans? Because I hear all the time people saying that they don't watch NXT, or it's not what it used to be, or, it's not as hot as it was.
NXT or AEW?
AEW, excuse me if I said NXT.
Gotcha.
But, even Dave Meltzer was a AEW guy. For him to say he thinks it's cold, that's saying something.
And I think too, the thing about, and this is, and of course, because it's our show, right? But this is our perspective. Somebody could have just started watching wrestling 3 years ago because of AEW, and that is their brand of wrestling that they would say, I think it is perfect every single week. So I do think that's part of it sometimes too, because what you said is kind of because we grew up on it, right? Like even if you're a fan of sports,
right.
Pittsburgh Steelers. If you are a Steeler fan, I want a team that can stop the pass and the run on defense, and I want my team to be able to run it down your throat when we need to and go for an 8-9 minute drive. That is the fan base. That is what you do. If you are a Golden State Warriors fan and you just started watching basketball 6 years ago, you are like, man, I want the run and gun. I want the 3-pointers. We on fast break. We on fast break. We pulling up to the 3-point line to shoot a 3-point. We ain't going to the hole. Because that is what that's your thing. So I do think that's for sure part of it, but that's what makes this so awesome is there is no right or wrong way at the end of the day. If it is entertaining to you, it works. I just think that there could be some things that, like, I mean, what Bush said about, I'm not in the NJPW, probably will never be in the NJPW. That's valid because for him now, he knows if I continue to watch AEW, and I don't want to watch Wrestle Kingdom. I don't want to go online to figure out who the IWGP champion is in New Japan. So that means that I know now from May to probably July 1st, I can check out on AEW because that is Forbidden Door season. That's valid. Now, how about if they were to show a lot of video packages on their TV about Will Ospreay, about Okada? Maybe a Chris Bush would be like, you know what? I've never really seen them, but at least now I know who they are. I understand why I should like this person. Let me either go try to find this stuff now, or let me just take it as face value when they give it to me on AEW. AEW just runs a lot of their business as if, yep, you know everything because you're an AEW fan. Here you go.
Yep. Bingo. They assume everyone knows everybody in their history and story.
Yep. And I was just going to address that, Matt, as far as I don't care about these other people. I understand why you don't care. Maybe though, if AEW did a better job in telling you how great these people are, you probably would care. And that's like you said, because when I first got into AEW Dynamite, that was the show that was out. When I first got into AEW, there was a lot of NJPW people and independent people that I thought I knew fairly amount of the people that would come over and debut. But a lot of times I didn't know like their songs or their catchphrases or like even the embassy, whatever, the Aussie Open people. So
stop throwing up gang signs.
I didn't mean to. I was trying to throw up.
Relax.
Whatever. Never mind. Put my hands down. My hands here. But I for a moment, I almost felt like damn, I don't know who that person is, and why am I about to watch a show, or why am I going to be in an area where I really don't know these people? And I pride myself as being a huge wrestling fan, but when you know the person's songs, or they'd be like, "Go Ace, go Ace," I didn't know what that meant for a while. I didn't even know what y'all was saying for a while. So I could see how that could be alienating to people. And for some people, I don't have, how people say I don't got time for no new friends. I don't got time for no new wrestling fans or wrestlers. So I get it, but I think if AEW did a better job in presenting them, Vikingo being one big person too next to Will Ospreay, I think Chris might feel a little bit different.